Part 1. The Black Ledger. There are names the Wasteland never lets you forget, even when the bodies are long gone. And the operators? They're one of them. Some gangs scream their cruelty from the rooftops. Others carve their legacy into bone. But the operators? They were the kind that smiled while they robbed you blind. Before we talk about their rise, you have to understand where they came from. Aristocrats. Old world pretenders wearing the last scraps of inherited luxury. Children of the Black family. Mags and William. Raised behind Diamond City's walls with all the comfort the post-war world could fake. But privilege makes a sharp blade. And eventually, someone gets cut. A tragedy. A scandal. Only whispers remain. But whatever happened to their classmates, it was enough to exile the Blacks forever. From that moment on, they weren't nobles. They were survivors. And survivors learn fast. Part 2. Exiles in Velvet. Those first years, the years after exile, shaped them more than any classroom ever could. William learned manipulation. Mags learned leadership. Lizzie learned how to make the world quiet itself with a well-placed chemical cocktail. They shed their old world skin 1 inch at a time, until only ambition remained. There's a story scavers tell about their first mark. A caravan master who thought 3 hungry exiles were easy prey. He didn't know Lizzie yet. He woke up alive, but surrounded by nothing. No Brahmin, no stock, not even footprints. And that's when the Black siblings realized who they were. Not victims, not orphans, operators. Part 3. The Velvet Blade. When they reached Nuka-World, they weren't looking for a home. They were looking for a stage. The pack tore their enemies apart like feral beasts. The disciples painted whole walls red just to feel alive. But the operators, they walked in wearing tailored leather, polished pistols, and smiles sharp enough to draw blood. Their philosophy was simple. Caps are law. Violence is optional. Profit is everything. And the parlor, the velvet-lined crown of Nuka-World, became their throne room. Not taken by force, but taken by charm. For a while, they were untouchable, elegant, calculated, dangerous in silence. Lizzie perfected her craft, chemical persuasion. William perfected his, the numbers behind power. Mags perfected hers, command without raising her voice. They built an empire, without firing more than a handful of bullets. And that, more than anything, made them terrifying. For the first time since exile, they had power. Not the power of brute force, not the power of numbers, but the power of influence. The kind of power that changes a room when you walk into it. The kind of power that convinces someone to hand over their future because they think you're the one protecting it. They wrapped themselves in velvet, spoke with honey, killed with silence. Mags Black became the voice, William the mind, and Lizzie Wyeth, she became whatever the moment required. She knew how to make a man confess without raising her voice, how to break a raider without spilling a drop of blood. And in Nuka-World, that combination was enough to shape an empire. Part 4. Profit in the Shadows. The operators didn't conquer settlements, they acquired them. A missing caravan here, a delayed crop shipment there, a sickness conveniently timed, a security breakdown mysteriously fixed, after the right amount of caps changed hands. Fear without noise, pressure without force, ownership without war. Their violence was surgical. 1 death, not 10. 1 disappearance, not 20. Efficiency personified. Lizzie Wyeth perfected interrogation cocktails that left no marks, no bruises, just the truth, and the empty stare of someone who gave it willingly. The operators didn't need torture. They had chemistry and charm and leverage. They knew what every settlement needed, and more importantly, what they were willing to give up to protect the people inside their walls. And worst of all, they made it look civilized. The parlor became the quiet engine that drained settlements dry, ledgers balanced to the cap, contracts forged with velvet-gloved hands, smiles that hid threats sharper than any knife. And those who resisted? Most never resisted twice. Part 5. The Cost Written in Shadows. I've walked battlefields littered with bodies, but the operators left behind something worse. Empty towns. Redbridge, Bridgewater, Three Pines, whole communities drained dry by debt and promises that tasted like salvation. Children starved because their mayors signed the wrong contract. Guards betrayed their towns because the interest on their protection package was higher than their hope. And those who vanished? They vanished quietly. Efficiency leaves no witnesses. During the settlement wars, I lost people because of them. Rhea Callow, the sharpest soldier I ever trained, gone in an ambush funded by Operator Intel. Grenner Holt believed he could negotiate a peace with Mags. I never found his body, just his holotags, wrapped in velvet. Even now, their ghosts walk with me. The operators didn't just take lives, they took futures. They left behind houses with dinner still on the table, desks with unfinished homework, workbenches abandoned mid-repair, places where laughter once lived, and where silence moved in to stay. You can rebuild a wall, you can repair a turret, you can harvest new crops, but rebuilding trust? Rebuilding hope? That's the hardest job the Wasteland ever demands of us. And the operators knew it. They counted on it. They profited from it. But what they didn't count on was people finally learning the cost of quiet villains. And when the Wasteland learned, when the settlements finally understood what was happening, the tide began to turn. Slowly. Quietly. Just as quiet as the operators' ride. Part 6. Echoes of Velvet in Gunpowder. The operators didn't fall because someone outgunned them, or outsmarted them, or struck some grand decisive blow. They fell because their math failed them. They bet everything on the overboss, believed they could guide them, profit from them, outmaneuver every rival. They saw the overboss as an investment, an asset to be shaped, molded, harnessed. But the overboss wasn't a variable you could trap in a ledger. The overboss was a storm, and storms don't negotiate. When territory was divided in ways that favored the pack or the disciples, when decisions were made on instinct instead of profit, their balance sheets collapsed, and with it, their power. The downfall didn't come with gunfire, or riots, or executions. It came with silence. Empty chairs in the parlor, half-full glasses of wine, ledgers still open, ink drying on the last calculations they'd ever make. A kingdom of velvet, disappearing in a single unprofitable season. Quiet villains, quiet end. And the Wasteland barely noticed the moment they were gone. Part 7. The Parlor's Shadow. I visited the parlor once after the wars. Not as an enemy, not as a conqueror, as a historian, as a man who needed to understand why so many settlements bled without ever hearing gunfire. The chairs were still upright, the ledgers still open, the chandeliers still clinging to the ceiling like they were afraid to fall. And it hit me. The operators didn't lose a war. They lost a philosophy. Because in the Wasteland, you can't build a future on fear wrapped in elegance. You can only delay the collapse. Face Corp rose by uniting people. The operators fell by using them. And that is the lesson the Wasteland refuses to forget. The pack teaches us savagery. The disciples teach us cruelty. But the operators, they teach us something far more dangerous. Civilized evil. Elegant exploitation. Violence hidden behind velvet curtains. Beware the enemy who cleans his blade. Beware the enemy who smiles while tightening the noose. Because those are the ones who leave ghosts behind. Part 8. Final Reflection. If the operators ever rise again, in full or in spirit, if someone finds their ledgers and mistakes cruelty for civilization, Face Corp will answer. I will answer. Because some shadows should never be allowed to stretch across the frontier again. In the end, the Wasteland remembers monsters who painted their knives with blood. But it remembers even more the monsters who hid their knives in velvet.
Archive node reconnecting. Face Corp terminal online.
Well, you made it to the end, Wastelander, and I want to thank you for walking this dusty road with me. These stories, they live because you keep listening, because you care, because the Wasteland still has folks like you out there. If you've got a topic you want me to dig into next, a vault, a faction, a legend, a cover-up, send it my way. Face Corp is always monitoring incoming requests. And hey, if you enjoyed this archive entry, press that like button. It keeps the terminal lights on. And if you want more stories from the ruins, go on and subscribe. Your support helps Face Corp recover and preserve every last fragment of our shattered world.
Loading next recommended archive file. File located. Displaying now.
It's right there on your screen. Go on. Open it. I'll meet you inside.